Hello everybody and welcome to the Corkboard, a series where we investigate the secret lore and hidden implications within Corru.Observer. I'm your host, Asterism, and I hope you'll join me for our first ever episode. Now, when I first had the idea to make this series, I had wanted to start off strong with, but I've decided to wait until I can fully do that theory justice. Instead, today we're going to be taking a look at a curious little fellow, the one who calls itself a friend, and maybe the one who will ultimately betray us in the future. I'm talking, of course, about Funfriend. Now, saying that Funfriend will betray us isn't exactly the freshest selkie on the Velkstock when it comes to theories, but I think that there is a lot of compelling evidence for it at the very least. So, if you'll follow me, I'd like to show you why I think Funfriend might really be our fun foe. First off, it's clear that at the moment, Funfriend needs us, and thus does not want to kick us out. Right at the start of the game, Funfriend says it won't kick us out, specifically because the Corru needs fuel, and without it the Corru will die. Whether the implication is that we would be kicked out if the Corru wasn't dying is admittedly debatable on its own, but it is definitely a valid read-between-the-lines conclusion to draw. But it's something to note that Funfriend is known to be a liar and a trickster. God calls Funfriend the deceiver in the game. If we ask God why it calls Funfriend the deceiver, it explains its reasoning, saying,
"It considers us incoherent and thus worthless, acceptable to lie to trick us back into line."
This, to me, assuming that God can be trusted, says that it is absolutely in character for Funfriend to be putting on a friendly facade to trick us into helping out, when it actually intends to go back on its word and lock us out once things reach a level of stability. It's important to remember that Funfriend's job is to serve Akazet, or at least to serve as the protector of her memories. Funfriend ostensibly has no allegiance to us whatsoever. To Funfriend, we're literally strangers who came out of nowhere, annihilated the security system, handed the Corru a snack, and started asking questions. It's entirely possible that even though Funfriend, at the moment, can't stop us from poking around, since, again, the authentication layer got destroyed by Velzy, that the moment it finishes getting repaired, we'll wake up to a big ol' Access Forbidden sign.
Hi, editing me here. I don't know how I managed to forget this, but, Moth agrees with me? I don't know how in the world I forgot about this, but, yeah, Moth agrees with me, and Moth is usually pretty right.
As for specific motivation to kick us out, well, we have consistently jeopardized the stability and safety of the Corru. We've aided and abetted direct enemies of Funfriend, like God and Joxiozo. Bad and unexplainable things seem to happen wherever we happen to go, although, admittedly, that's more Velzy's fault than anything else. We go directly behind Funfriend's back if we decide to spare God, and actively keep it a secret. I mean, come on, we literally unleashed demons, that's daemons, into the cyst by tricking Funfriend into modifying the memories of the collapse with our framing device. Funfriend has every right to consider us not just a potential threat, but a very active one. A specific piece of evidence I'd also like to call out is that Funfriend is repeatedly referred to by others as the Tyrant. For example, all the inhabitants of Joxiozo call Funfriend the Tyrant. When we first meet Isabel, she refers to Funfriend as the Tyrant, and so do the fairy and Gilly. Gillyster? That's the name in the game file, so I'll go with that. And Tyrant is really a pretty specific word to use, don't you think? In my opinion, at least, it conjures up a much more specific image than, say, a king does. A tyrant rules with an iron fist, crushes their opposition, keeps the populace in everlasting fear. And keep in mind, the inhabitants of the Corru are not speaking English here. The interloper's mind spike is translating raw thought into the most applicable word for the situation. That's why the mind spike messes up and confidently calls the obesque pet in the embassy a dog. So, if the most applicable word in this case is specifically tyrant, and not some simpler term like, say, evil king, then we are forced to accept that these additional connotations are all very important to the meaning here. Funfriend allows us to play around in the syst because we are helping it. But at some point, Funfriend might no longer need our help, as most of the incoherence will eventually get clear, and the Corru syst will reach a more stable configuration. Eventually, we will no longer be useful to the tyrant. And what do tyrants do with people who aren't useful anymore? They get rid of them. There's a lot more that can be said about the name tyrant, but let's put a pin in that for the moment and take a look at some counterarguments. It's important to mention that there are a few very important reasons that should be considered as to why Funfriend might not actually betray us in the end. For most of them, there are reasons that I don't find them very compelling, but they should be at least stated to cover our bases here. First off, Funfriend obviously knows that we physically possess the Corru syst. Funfriend's job is to protect the Corru syst, and us having physical access to the syst means that there's always the potential threat of us doing harm to it if we don't get our way. Personally, I don't think Funfriend would be very dissuaded by this though. Funfriend isn't dumb, and has absolutely figured out by now that we consider the information within the syst to be extremely valuable. As long as there's the faintest possibility of us getting information from the syst, we probably won't be willing to destroy it, and Funfriend likely knows that. Another reason Funfriend might not try to kick us out is that it seems to have absolutely no idea what we can and can't do. Funfriend assumes that we can do simple things like visit the collapsed memories on our own when we actually can't without a framing device. And conversely, it knows that we can see things in the syst that are invisible to it, namely Velzy. From its perspective, there's really no knowing what we might be capable of, so getting on our bad side is inherently a risky proposition, and potentially a deterrent from any backstabbiness. However, from what has been shown so far, there really isn't much of a reason for Funfriend to assume we're particularly powerful. Our extraordinary abilities, as far as Funfriend has seen, are limited to just observation and exploration. And finally, it's entirely possible that Funfriend actually is just being friendly. Maybe Funfriend is just that, a fun little friend inside the computer, ready to assist in any way it can. It may very well be the case that it has no ill will against us at all. This is by far the hardest piece of evidence to refute, as it would involve knowing what's really going on inside that little square head. Maybe Funfriend just goes too far when it comes to working towards fixing the syst, wreaking havoc on everyone else simply out of desperation and not direct malice. I don't believe it myself, but maybe I'm just being a bit too cynical. Be sure to let me know in the comments. So, to summarize, we are in an alliance of convenience. Funfriend is likely only letting us poke around inside the syst because we are actively helping to solve problems that couldn't be solved otherwise. Funfriend's job is to protect the Corru syst, be that from starvation, rogue thought forms, or even us. Although Funfriend has assured us that we aren't in danger of being kicked out, Funfriend is known to be a trickster and a liar, and would definitely play us to achieve its goal. Funfriend also has compelling motives to want us to not be around. However, just as we are working with incomplete information about Corru-cystic tech, Funfriend is working with incomplete information about us. Funfriend could be scared of getting on our bad side out of fear of what we could do if we don't get our way. Or maybe Funfriend really is just being friendly and genuinely wants to help us out. I for one find that unlikely, but it is certainly a possibility. However, regardless of how Funfriend feels about us now, I think that there is an incredibly likely scenario in the future that may put us at odds with each other. Something that would shake the foundations of the game itself, and may even be a part of the eventual finale of Corru.Observer. Let me explain. Remember that the inhabitants of Joxiozo refer to Funfriend as the tyrant. And again, tyrant is a very specific word with very specific connotations. Let me ask you, dear viewer, what do you do with a tyrant? You overthrow them. Yes, you heard me right. I theorize that sometime in the future, the inhabitants of the Corru will indeed launch a rebellion against Funfriend, and we will be thrust into the middle of it and have to choose which side we'll support. From talking to Funfriend and the inhabitants of Joxiozo, it's clear that tensions in the Corru will only continue to grow as incoherence recedes and Funfriend's rule comes closer and closer to direct conflict with Joxiozo's independence. The idea that, within the timeline of the game, this might all come to a head is, I believe, very likely. So far, there seems to be two main sections of play within Corru.Observer. There's sections about gathering information, which involves helping Funfriend repair the cyst to access more of Akazith's memories, and visiting coherent areas, and sections about exploration, where you interact with the various thought forms that inhabit the cyst and find your way through incoherent areas. But these goals are incompatible with each other. Encouraging coherence puts the thought forms of the cyst in danger, while encouraging incoherence endangers the valuable information about Akazith and the cyst's memories. There might be some room for everybody at the present moment, but as time moves forward, the situation will only get more and more unstable. And as for our role in this? Well, every instance of us helping those not under Funfriend's control is, so far, entirely optional. You can definitely proceed from chapter to chapter without ever interacting with God in the Uncosm or finding Joxiozo. Whether we engage with these things or not is directly our decision as the player. We are at the center of a conflict of dichotomy: coherence versus incoherence, order versus chaos, and we choose whether to involve ourselves in it. It would make sense, then, that this is building up to some sort of ultimate choice where, in the end, we'll have to decide whether we want to destroy Joxiozo to preserve the Corusist's memories, or overthrow the tyrant and risk losing all the valuable information we might otherwise have been able to retrieve. Having something like that be the ending to a game about research and exploration is, in my opinion, very compelling. And that's why I think it'll be at least one part of the ending of Corru.Observer. But hey, I'm just a guy on the internet. What do you guys think? Will you choose to be an active participant? Or simply an observer? As of the making of this video, we're only 3.5 episodes into this game, so at this point nearly anything could eventually happen. I've been Asterism, and sometimes I too wish to be a fun friend.